What's up, guys? It's Phil Forrest, and today I want to briefly talk about a book that I just recently finished. This is Pacific Crest Trials, a psychological and emotional guide to successfully through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail by Zach Davis and Carley Moree. The primary author of this book, Zach Davis, originally wrote Appalachian Trials, which is essentially the same thing, but obviously geared towards the AT, which he through hiked. And then the co-author, Carley Moree, she through hiked the PCT and has some interjections in here and has her own section a couple times talking about PCT specific things. But 80% of this book is written by Zach Davis, and it's not so much about the Pacific Crest Trail. I mean, it is, but really what it is just through hiking in general, I would say. Kind of a psychological, emotional guide to long distance hiking, regardless of what trail. Yes, it has some examples from the PCT naturally, but you could apply this stuff to any hike. Now, the reason that I was excited to read this when I got it for Christmas is because the psychological and emotional piece, what's going on in your head, is much more interesting to me for a long distance hike than, the physical preparation piece and the gear piece. I love training physically. I've gotten really into that in the last few months. I love gear, researching gear, trying new things, all that good stuff. But really that's just a supplement to what is going on in your head. And when I think about successfully through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, it's not going to be because I have the best gear or the lightest gear or I'm the most physically fit. It is going to be because I didn't quit, really. At the end of the day, is what I think it will come down to. And I'm sure that's the case for the majority of people who don't finish, who are unsuccessful, barring random injuries, things that you can't hike through. I'd say for the most part it's just people leaving the trail on their own terms for one reason or another, whatever that is. This book is broken down into 3 sections that make it really easy to follow. Section 1 is pre-trail, things that you should do before you even get out there. Research your resupply strategy, figuring out your gears, budgeting, getting time off of work, things like that. Section 2 of this book is going to be the on-trail section, and in this section it goes kind of chronologically, right? So it starts the beginning of the trail, things you might feel or think at the beginning, kind of the nerves, the excitement, everything being a new experience, how it will be, everything will be novel and interesting at first, and then it goes into the honeymoon phase, or the end of the honeymoon phase rather, when things aren't new anymore, you've experienced a lot of the same things over and over, and you're starting to get those doubts in your head, the questions about why you're out there, things like that. And it's good because it has, practical exercises and, thought exercises, things you can do. And that's what I really like about this section, because it doesn't just talk about what you're going to feel or how you might feel. It gives you actionable exercises, thought exercises, things that you can talk yourself through and remember why you're out there, and really make sure that you don't make a brash decision to leave the trail based on a couple bad days or a couple bad thoughts that you can't kick. And that's really important, I think. And then section 3 is the post-trail section, which doesn't apply a lot to me right now, obviously. In real life, I got to get through section 2 of my life first. I still read it, obviously, but it just talks about, when you get off trail, you've just had this wonderful experience, and how to keep, the post-trail blues away, staying connected with trail family, things like that. And that's great, whatever. I enjoyed reading that, but it obviously doesn't apply to me a ton right now, so I'll save that for later. And then to close it out, the co-author, Carley Moree, the one who actually did the PCT, has a gear section in the back where she talks about all the different kinds of gear and different techniques that people use on the PCT, and recommends a couple brands, a couple specific items. However, I did notice that some of her gear recommendations were a little bit out of date. I think this was written in this was written in 2016, so that was 8 years ago already. So some of the stuff still stands. Obviously, those those brands and those items are still, staples in the backpacking community. But obviously since 2016, when Carley wrote this, there have been improvements to every section of gear, and there's, new lighter stuff and different stuff. So even though all the individual gear recommendations may not make complete sense nowadays, 8 years later, she does talk about just general principles of gear, which still apply and will always apply. And I enjoyed that piece as well, and it kind of reminded me of the, issue with ultralight video that I made. What it really comes down to, you can recommend as much gear as you want, but what it comes down to is personal preference. And people want to carry heavier stuff or luxury items, then so be it. And it's important to some people and not important to other people. So gear is personal, is what it comes down to. But she does offer, some recommendations on a few pieces of specific gear. So overall, I would definitely give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I'll leave a link down below if you're interested. If you haven't read this and you're doing the PCT, I would definitely recommend it. Or if you know someone that's going to do the PCT, I would also recommend it. Even if you're not actively planning, a thru hike, it's still worth a read. If it's something you might be interested in the future, or just, this is a subject that you have a general interest level in, I would still give it a read. It's still worth it in my eyes. It just does a really good job of giving, actionable advice, tips and tricks on maintaining a level head, not getting too caught up in the day-to-day issues that you might be facing, whether it's, bad weather, you got blisters, talks about the social scene and problems you can have with different hiking groups that you'll make along the way. It just talks about all the different aspects of a thru hike that can really, set people off into a less than ideal headspace, and how to overcome those things. I think that's really important because, like I said at the beginning of the video, for most people, it's not going to be a physical limitation that prevents them from finishing the trail. It really is just going to be a decision. I would estimate 90% of the time it's mental, and gear is important, training is important, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's going to be your mind that takes you from start to finish. Pacific Crest Trials, a psychological and emotional guide to successfully thru hiking the Pacific Crest Trail by Zach Davis and Carley Moree. Check it out.